Hey guys, welcome back to another Vern Supercoach video. Today we're going to be going through NBL Supercoach and my preferred forwards to be choosing from. Now this will include forward, premiums and also maybe bench players. Obviously it's extremely important to get those players correctly as the bench will be scoring 50% of their score, accounting to part of our overall score for the week, so super important. Now, first of all, yes, how good was it to see the Pies get up Friday night? Grand final against Brisbane next week. Super excited for it, having a bunch of people over, so should be real fun. So, really keen for that. Good game of footy, and just it's always good to get up. But yes, back to the NBL Supercoach. Just wanted to get that out there nice and quick for everyone. So, going through my preferred forwards. Now, look. What I will tell you is I'm going to do forwards and guards for the videos. I'm probably going to do 4 videos, sort of one over the next few days, just to wrap us up to the start of the season. We're going to do forwards today. Tomorrow we'll do guards. We'll do high percentage players owned that I don't agree with, and then we will do obviously how the team's looking. I might try and get that out. Let's see, so one today, I'll probably do one at midnight and then one at midnight over the next 2 days, so we've still got hopefully over 24 hours before the start of the game. But just wanted to give you all a heads up that will be coming. Now, as you mentioned, I didn't mention any centers there because I more or less just think the centers are a little bit too easy to actually choose from. As we've talked about in our previous video, the fixture is super important. We want to be looking at these Melbourne players. We want to be looking at the Brisbane players. Perth players aren't the end of the world. Adelaide's pretty good too, and Tasmania's and Sydney aren't too bad either. But preferably because of that, I feel like it's just made it very easy. Obviously, for those that watch the Blitz, I actually went down. Sorry, I didn't go down anywhere. I just sat down, watched basically all those games, and at least all the important ones in my opinion, because I'm not going to watch games that were just not Supercoach relevant. I wasn't going to obviously Cairns and New Zealand aren't relevant at all to start this season because they will be playing 5 games in the first 5 rounds, which just isn't very efficient when you have Melbourne playing 9 games. So sat down, watched the relevant Supercoach games, and really just enjoyed them overall. But because of that, there was just a few standouts there where it was just too hard to look past. And I think you already know where I'm going with this, but Tyler Cook was insane. He needs to be picked up 100% in everyone's. Let's just do it like this. Sorry, he needs to be picked up in everyone's team. He was way too good. And I think the thing with this is for these, what are they called? So I've blanked, but let's just say the foreigners that have been recruited, they just have crazy value starting at 277k. Look, some of them have crazy value, some obviously don't, but that prices them at about 24 for scoring. Now, over Tyler Cook's 3 games, he did go 39, 48, and 22. So, I mean, that's insane. That's already his worst game. He's sort of meeting at minimum what he needs to be doing. 36.3 average. That's just way too good, way too above the price. He's just a value pick, and you just have to start him. You can obviously start him in the forwards, but I just think, preferably, I think he's a better, I don't know, there hasn't been any centers that have really jumped out to me. Obviously, we have Alan Williams, who's not going to be playing as to why Tyler Cook was recruited. Joe Luell Jr. ain't going to be playing. Wiley, we unfortunately didn't really get a look at any of these preseason games. Pinder was definitely good, so I guess he could be an option for some people, but I think money can be spent better elsewhere considering the very large price tag on his head. Humphrey, I don't know, Adelaide didn't look very good, so Humphrey could definitely be an option for people, but didn't look very good. Aaron Baines had one good game and there was a bit of a mess elsewhere, but yeah, I just think he's the number 1 go-to center right there, and just chuck him in your team. Doesn't really matter where, he just needs to be in the team as long as he's not on the bench, and he's just too much value. 12% owned, that should honestly be way higher, and that's just for the people that didn't clearly watch the Blitz, saying that we have 8% for Alan Williams and 5% for Joe Luell Jr., who isn't even, they're not even going to be playing the start of the season, so people have clearly made teams and then forgot about it. because anyone that is actively paying attention shouldn't have picked them up. Next is very clear, Hook Porty. Once again, Joel Jr. being out, he's going to be the number one center. He came out and just looked really good in his games. I mean, he put out an 18, 22, and a 41. Now, the 41's obviously very inflated, but he's only priced at 15. So, considering he's priced at 15 and he's looking at 18 to 22, as, you know, they were his lower games, it's already higher than what he's priced at. So, I do think he's probably the third out of the centers that would be picking. I think you have to pick Cook. Hook Porty, if you went past him, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I do think he's, considering what we have and considering the price tag, I think he's just almost a must-have as well. And then finally, we do obviously finish that off with Alexander Sarr. Now, once again, I think Sarr needs to be in your team as well, so you could definitely look at Cook into Sarr and skip Hook Porty at the end of the day. Sorry, I said this wasn't really going to be a centers because, as I said, I think centers were just too straightforward. But in my case, I think all three of them just should really honestly be in your team. And since they have that forward flexibility, you can easily get Sarr onto the bench or you can get Cook onto the forward, whatever you would, I guess, prefer. But yeah, Sarr was insanely good as well. He is priced at 10 for his Supercoach scores, and he went 36, 27, 19 for an average of 27. So Hook Porty and him put out the same averages, but he is 60k cheaper. Yeah, priced at only 10, so that's why Alexander Sarr has to be in your team to start. It works out really well with these three, obviously, being teams that we sort of want to target early. There is players that are in this, like Aldrich, which would almost be a must start if he wasn't playing for Illawarra, because they just have a very slow fixture to start, as we know. And it just doesn't feel good. Yes, he's very cheap. He's going to probably earn you money, which is going to be really good. But you can probably pick up players like Sarr, Porty, Cook, who are going to play more games than him. I mean, he plays 12 in the first 10. So Hook Porty's going to play at least 14. 14 out of Cook, and Sarr's going to play 14 as well. So they're going to put out at least 2 extra games. And he just doesn't really have many doubles. So, I mean, he's a great option, and it's very hard to look past him. He was also very good in the Blitz too. I mentioned I didn't watch teams like Illawarra really because we didn't really care too much for them. Menegola was also someone that was really good and is a center option too, but because of these poor fixtures that they have, we just didn't really care. But obviously, when I watched other teams that played against them, they were very noticeable. If you did decide to get Aldridge because of the way you've structured up and you need to put a cheap player in your center line, that would be fine, I guess. But preferably, honestly, you just want to stick towards that fixture. You want to stick towards those South Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide players. But yeah, I do think looking at the fixture overall, maybe I look at it too wide in 5-week timeframes. But I have done some planning, and I'll go over that when I do release my team. So sorry, jumping to the main event here, jumping to the forwards that I recommend. As I mentioned, Cook, Hook, Porty, and Sarr I am going to be counting as centers, so they're not going to be on this list. So jumping to the forwards exclusively, number one forward, in my opinion. Look, this one's a really hard one to pick, just because how little we saw of him, but how good we know he is. He was almost the MVP of last season. He's put out a massive score. He's got a huge price tag on his head. It is Mitch Creek at the end of the day. Look, in the very few games we saw of him, or even in the few time we saw him on the court, he obviously had a calf complaint, so he didn't play a lot of the games, or he played half the game sort of thing. He did do well in that retrospect, and he was probably taking it pretty easy. But I think just looking at what he did last season, and even in the preseason games before the Blitz, he looked really good, had a good 32-point game there. And it's just one of those things where I think it's just a reliable captain option. So I think he's a great pickup for most people. And you can yin-yang him with Bryce Cotton, just in the sense that South Melbourne play a double, then another double, then they have a single. In that sense, you could switch him to Bryce for round 3, who has a double, and then switch Bryce back to Mitch Creek, who has a double in round 4, and that way you could get 8 games out of basically a very good captain option who's on the double each time. So I think Mitch Creek, because of that versatility that you will be able to flip him with Bryce Cotton, no other player you really can, just because of the price tag Bryce is at, being at 460. But Bryce would be down in obviously the guards category, so you will need some DPP to flip it around. But yeah, I think he's just going to be a reliable captain option with 4 games in the first 2 games. So it's too hard to look past that. South Melbourne players and Adelaide players, the highest value in your starting team to a degree, because they have 2 doubles in the first 2 rounds. So yeah, I think Mitch Creek is going to be probably looking at these numbers again. He's still at a good age, so he shouldn't be really deteriorating too much. I do wonder how the Tyler Cook factor would affect him, but saying that, he did have Alan Williams last year. Obviously different players, but I do think we should expect, honestly, a similar Mitch Creek. So that's why I've put him sort of as the number 1 forward to be looking at. Now the next 3 are at a much more affordable price tag, and just work out really well. Number 2 is Chris Smith. I think he looked really good in his games. He's low percentage owned, which I think is really crazy there. Look, I think it's funny because I think he almost looked better when I was watching him than what his actual numbers came out to be. But at the same time, the consistency from his numbers, really good. So he's priced at 24. He came out with a 26, 21, 22. Average of 23. So 3 games, and he was pretty bang on the money. So I guess in this case, I feel like if you're getting Chris Smith, at worst case scenario, you'd be overpaying a tiny bit, because I do think he's going to be at that 20 plus average. But for what we have seen, even in these preseason games before the Blitz again, he did have a good 40-point game out there. 40-point Supercoach, not actual 40 points put down. But he has had, he did have some good preseason games before this as well. He's also one of the players that has stayed healthy and managed to put 3 games together, which is also very helpful, without some players that have obviously had some sort of niggle or something, which makes it very hard to pick them, just because sometimes we didn't see all of them, and unfortunately, just if they did miss like the last 2 games of the Blitz, then it's 1 week left. You've had some sort of niggle. Are you going to be right? And if you are right, you're going to be 100%. So, Chris Smith, he got out, he played every game, he looked good. A few games, I think, honestly, his shooting was maybe a bit off, where it felt like it's a bit low. But at the same time, he likes to shoot the ball. He shoots it really well, and he's just an offensive beast. So I was really impressed with his game. Look, unfortunately, Brisbane do only have the 1 game in round 1, but then do hit 2 doubles in round 2 and 3. So if you did miss on him, understandable. I wouldn't be surprised if you did miss on him, realized how good he was, and then brought him in round 2 to get the double on round 2 and round 3. Saying that, I wouldn't really be skipping on players that don't have the double in round 1, just because the way the fixture works out, by round 3, a lot of teams have already played 5 games, and I don't know if you're really going to be swapping after 1 game. If you do want to be that aggressive, definitely feel free to. But yes, definitely Chris Smith, second one I'm putting up there. And look, as I said, I know the numbers aren't going crazy for him, but I was generally impressed by his game watching him play. Next one is going to be Jordan Usher. So once again, another player that just looked really good when we were watching them play. He's starting on an import for immediate effect. He basically stated he wants to be Defensive Player of the Year, but he still has, honestly, a lot of offensive power. Once again, priced at 24. He came out with a 20, 22, and then a big 39. So just these nice 20s. I mean, at worst case scenario, once again, you're not overpaying for him. But then to put out that 39 shows he definitely has the ability to have these bigger games where if he's offensively on with how proficient he is sort of in defense, it's really nice. But saying that, he did have some, each game he honestly had some really good scoring. It was pretty good by him, pretty impressed by him. Once again, Perth do have the double up in round 1, then they do hit up just a single in round 2 before a double in round 3. So definitely someone that is nice to start just for the double in round 1 if you're looking for that massive round 1 score. Somebody I thought was really good, saying that Bryce was down on his scoring when Jordan Usher went a little bit nuts in his games, just because I think there was just more points up for grabs because Jordan was going nuts. Bryce was like, I can take a step back, and Jordan just kept going crazy on them. Sorry, one moment. Okay. Where were we at next? We were going to Luke Travers. Once again, he is priced just under this 277, so basically priced at the 24. Played last season and was just a monster. And honestly, when I watched his first game, you guys noticed when I first released my team, he was in it because he just looks so good, and he looks so built for the game as well. He's just so long, and he's just so coordinated, and just he wants rebounds, he scores points, he makes assists, and then he can get blocks and steals, which is really nice. Sort of the complete package, honestly, from I guess what you usually get from this forward guard hybrid, where they've got the length in a lot of cases, but also have the agility to be played at a smaller position. But yeah, just once again, Joe Llewellyn Jr. being out, it means that Hook Porty's taking more responsibility, which I also feel like Travis has been stepping up to get more rebounds in this instance as well, or just be a stronger force inside to make up for that absence. So I do think he naturally has a progression. Obviously, you have natural progression, but then there's just like better opportunity for him to naturally score more Supercoach points as well. He did come out with a 19, 25, and 40, averaging him just over 28 points over the blitz. Saying this, he did have a smack to the eye in game 1, where he had to have his eye I think it was glued up because they definitely had some paste on his eye because it started bleeding. So game 1 where he got that 19, he did spend probably a lot longer on the bench than he would have previously. Obviously, he got the 25 and the 40, so I do think that was a little bit down because of that. But even then, 19, there's still nothing to cry home about. That's not the end of the world if one of these premiums came out and put out a 19. So I do think there's definitely upside for him to push beyond that 24 and just really like his game. Once again, a Melbourne player too, so he's going to be having 9 games in the first 5 rounds, more than any other team, so it just puts his priority through the roof. So they're the 4 premiums I would probably recommend in the forward line. As I mentioned, obviously, Tyler Cook, if you're not running him in the center, I would definitely look at flipping him into the 4. But I think these 4 stood out to me the most as guys that you just honestly should be looking at in your team. Once again, and also the fixture plays a big part into it. If they didn't have these great fixtures, it might be a different story. There's definitely players that I looked at and I went, damn, that player's looking nuts. And it's like, unfortunately, they're playing for Cairns or they're playing for New Zealand, and they just don't have the fixture that. Why would I bother bringing them in at that stage? Literally playing 5 games to Melbourne's 9. That's 4 games less by round 5. That's crazy. Like, you just play the fixture at this point. So yeah, they're my recommended premiums. We'll jump into what I'm going to call bench options or rookie options. Look, I don't really know where to put the cutoff here, but sort of anything lower than 200k is where I was sort of calling them rookie. So number 1 is the first man under 200k in the forward line. It is DJ Mitchell. He was someone that once again was in my starting team because he just looked good in the preseason game. But then even in the blitz games, he came out really nice. He's priced at 16, so not a huge price there. But he came out with an 18, a 29, and a 17. So 2 games only just above that 16, which is a bit unfortunate. I thought it was a little bit better than that, and then he did have this nice 29, which does inflate it a bit to the average of 21 over the blitz. So look, scored 5 points higher than his average, so he's going to make us some money if you do start him, if he can average that throughout the season. But it is always hard to tell when they have sort of one inflated game. But I do think with the lineup that Brisbane had, they were sort of putting their best foot forward, and it's definitely what I think we should expect to be seeing in the regular season, the minutes that he's getting and just the output he's putting out. So I'd expect around about that 20 average mark, so maybe only a 4-point increase, but I do think he's got some value there. So he would be a great number 1 option, but he does have that inflated price tag, so it feels a bit rough starting somebody this inflated on the bench. But that's just, I guess, if you have the extra cash and maybe you're not happy with some of these cheaper rookies, you might want to go for them. Or maybe you've gone too expensive on the field and you need to get a cheaper on-field player. He could be a cheaper on-field player, but he's most likely going to be on your bench, I would assume. Next, we're jumping down. Now, this one, fixture isn't as crazy for this one. This is the only player I have from Sydney in here, but it is Alex Tui. because you just can't look past his numbers. He put out massive numbers. Sydney have 7 games in the first 5 rounds, so look, a little bit behind the rest of the pack there. But at the same time, it's not the end of the world. He does have a bit of an inflated price tag himself, being at a 115, so he is a 10 scoring to start with. But his first 2 games were pretty ballistic, and it was hard to look past. He came out with a 26, 24, and then a 9. So it puts him to an average of 19, but once again, he is priced at 10. So that is pretty crazy value, and look, it does beg the question, I guess what's more realistic here? Was that 9 more realistic, or was this 26 and 24 more realistic? And honestly, this kid was really good. Like, when he even dropped the 9, I was a little bit surprised. I don't think I ended up watching all of that game. I think I only watched till halftime. And look, he didn't do anything super crazy, but he did have some nice moments. And I thought, yeah, half a game left, he's going to put together quite a nice score, but apparently didn't. Sydney ended up getting blown out in that game. And look, I don't know if Sydney's going to get blown out in the regular season. But yeah, he just had 2 massive games to start, and that's really hard to look past at 26 and 24. So that's the only reason that he is on this list at the end of the day. The reason that he's the only Sydney player on this list at the end of the day, because if he can put out those sort of numbers throughout the regular season, priced at 10, he's going to make us some great money and just be great bang for his buck. Obviously, we want to get the most cost-efficient players in our team from the word go, players that are going to play above their starting price, and he definitely showed it in the first 2 games that he has the ability to play above that starting price. So someone that I've put there, once again, a slightly inflated price tag because he was just very, very good. Jumping down now is to the only Adelaide player I think I have on this list, which is crazy because Adelaide, as I mentioned, have the double up round 1 and the double up round 2, but it is going to be Kieran Galloway. Look, it's really hard to pick Adelaide players. They weren't good. They weren't consistent. They got pumped in 2 of their games. And then the 3rd game looked a lot better. And that's what made it hard to not pick some of them, because you had people like Sunday Deck who just played really good, but he played sort of the main point guard position. And I don't think that's going to be what's happening in the regular season. Obviously, you got Trey Kelder return, and you had Wiley. He wasn't playing that game either. So once those guys come into the lineup, you assume Deck goes back to the bench, and he's not going to be half as good as he sort of was when they weren't in the team. But yeah, the Adelaide players they were super inconsistent, basically all of them. And the way they're getting pumped, it just didn't feel good. Lots of turnovers, which you get -2 points for a turnover. So you see someone putting out 7-8 turnovers a game. That's a lot, and that's a lot of points down the drain, and really hard to pick them. But honestly, Kieran Galloway, he is at this baseline price where he's priced at $69K, very cheap. And honestly, what I think super crucial for this is that you can start Galloway, get out a double in round 1, double in round 2, then he has a single and a double again. So by round 4, he's played 7 games, which is pretty good. And Kansas only played 3 at that point. And I think you could be looking at a Galloway trade by that point, who's already hopefully made some increase on his price tag by that point. So hopefully he's made an increase on that price tag by that point. You can downgrade him to somebody like Armstrong, who looked really good from Cairns, and at that point will go on a massive 7-game double up run in a row. So hopefully, he can make some money early, have a lot of early games he does, and then move him on to Armstrong and hopefully maybe make some money in that instance, and hopefully just get some better scoring out of them, just because he's running so many games to start. So that's honestly what my thinking is with Galloway. But once again, priced at 6, he put out a 27. I think that was maybe a bit more unrealistic of him in a game where they got flogged and they really needed someone to stand up. Humphrey also had a good game that one, and then he put out a 13 and a 13, and I think those were more realistic scores towards the 13 mark. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see him averaging around that 13 to 15 sort of average. He's priced at 6, so he's gonna make money, and he's gonna be bang for his buck at his price. Now the other one that I guess I'll do the honorable mention later on, because unfortunately he just fell off the list, but This one, we're going to do Ben Henshaw. He's going to fall into the forward. He is a forward guard split here. Once again, 69k, but just really good in his games. Once again, priced at 6. He came out with an 11, which that's already great for when you're priced at 6. He came with an 11, a 29, and a 16. Now, that 29, I think, is unrealistic, as they did play Adelaide, who they flogged by over 30 points, and they just got so far ahead that they just basically run their bench team the entire game. So that's why Henshaw and Harris also just like had these inflated scores. And it's good that they're giving these kids the run. It definitely shows that they want to be using them, and they definitely look like they've got the talent. And I think in more realistic games, they're still going to get court time. And I think that 11 to 16 range, that's definitely something that's in their wheelhouse. I think they'll look towards maybe that 13 to 15 average for Henshaw. Once again, priced at 6, I think that's really nice value there. So a great starting pick as well. Also ends up with a double-up game. Unfortunately, he ends up with a double, single, double, single, single, double. So he doesn't go nuts out of the gate with the amount of games, but he does sort of get there by at least round 6. You're sort of fine. So I think he's a rookie that you'd be looking to hold a bit more long term in that sense. But maybe I might be wrong there. But I do think he looks like he could put out the scoring to warrant that that's going to be perfectly fine. You hold him for longer, and he's going to put out some good scoring. So yeah, with this fixture, I've definitely been doing pre-planning on my trades, and I think that's why these players are important, because some of them are players that you're picking you're going to hold a little bit longer. I think Tui's someone you hold a bit longer, and Henshaw someone you hold a bit longer. Mitchell, if he has the great run, you could potentially hold him longer, but he might be someone you move on after round 6, as he does get 10 games out by then. And then, as I mentioned, Gallery out by round 4. So yeah, they're my 4 preferred bench options. Now, some of those definitely have an inflated price, and I'm going to give an honorable mention out here to Josh Banana. I'm going to just say Banana. I don't know if that's right. He was unbelievable in his first game. My goodness, watching him play, I was sitting there like, I want this guy in my team so bad. Right after that game, threw him straight into my team. I'm like, I want him right now. Unfortunately, didn't play the rest of the blitz as he had a lower leg injury. They didn't say what, they just said lower leg, and just wasn't able to play. And they also didn't say if he's going to be back for round 1. So that one, it's a bit hard because we only saw him once, but God, he looked good in that one game. And I wouldn't be surprised if round 1 rolls around, he actually gets named. Once again, though, Brisbane do only have one game in round 1. So between the next round 2 to round 6, they put out 9 games, which is an insane stretch to put that out. That's the same, Melbourne put out 9 games in the first 5 rounds, and we want all those players. So Brisbane players, I wouldn't, if he does technically get named in round 1, I wouldn't grab him straight away, but I wouldn't be surprised to pivot to him by round 2 at least, if he looks good in that round 1 game, because they obviously have a very good 5 weeks after that, and he just looked really good. I honestly would have put him on this list over honestly any one of these 4 players that I put here. That's just how good he looked on that one game. Unfortunately, once again, a 1 game sample size, which is a bit questionable to be putting that much faith in a player who just went nuts in 1 game. But once again, he just had great length, he had great vision, lots of insanely good passes from him. And just looked like somebody that we wanted in our side. So super unfortunate that we didn't see more of him. I would love to see him get up to play. And as I said, maybe I'd make the switch to get him in by round 2 if, say, Galloway doesn't work out or Henshaw doesn't work out. Maybe one of these players just don't look as good as what they did. Maybe their minutes are completely taken away. Maybe they injure themselves. Tap wood, hopefully not. We don't want anyone to injure himself. But maybe something happens where moving to him just works out really nicely. And if not, maybe we have to make a sacrifice where we're moving to him, even if it's not super beneficial, just because honestly, he just looked really good. So that's my honorable mention for him. I didn't actually check what numbers he put out in the blitz. I didn't check what it was, but he was definitely very good. I wouldn't be surprised 26 plus sort of thing. He was very good. And at this price tag, it's just way too much value. So yeah, they're my preferred forwards. Obviously, premiums, Mitch Creek, Smith, Travers, and Usher. And then coming into the preferred bench options, we've got Mitchell, Tui, Galloway, Henshaw, and honorable mention to Banana. Once again, if I'm not saying that correctly, I am so sorry. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. I'm actually going to get straight to recording the guards video after this, and I'll post that probably midnight tonight, where I will get the forwards one out as soon as possible. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Really appreciate it. Hopefully see you in the next one. And for those that do carry along for the journey as we go, watch the week by week, I really appreciate that. For those that have subbed as well, super cool. So thank you so much. But yeah, I'll catch you all in a bit. Peace later. Oop, I hit save team, not stop recording. Whoops.